Hi class, so this video is going to walk you through exactly how to do our assignment number 1. So I made a very similar assignment just with a different data set to model what to do. And what I'm looking for is can you copy and do the same type of R assignment, right? So the whole purpose of the Excel and R assignments, as I told you before, is it's not for you to be an expert in R or an expert in Excel. It's simply just to expose you to how statistics is actually done, right? So a lot of times we don't do stats by hand, right? It's usually we have thousands of pieces of data or hundreds of data, and we don't necessarily want to calculate this by hand for every data set, right? So oftentimes we use a statistical package to help us out, right? And R can be very useful, but R can't do absolutely everything that we want it to do, right? That's why we have statistical packages that you can buy or download. So the reason why I chose R is it's a widely used program and it's also free, right? So there are others like SPSS and so forth but they can be costly. So I didn't want you to spend a ton of money to be able to be exposed to statistical software. All right, so let's walk through this data. Our assignment number 1. Demo. So you're told that 15 MTC students were surveyed, and the data set includes 4 variables on a group of students. So the 4 variables that we have on the student are ID, GPA, gender, and work, right? So what we're told about the variables is that GPA indicates their current college GPA, and work is identifying if the student works or not at the time of the survey, right? So are you currently employed? So this could be part-time or full-time, right? Just meaning, are you working at that time? And here I have gender identified, right? That's pretty self-explanatory. And ID, right? Remember, this is also considered a variable. In this case, it's a very generic variable. It's just naming each student by a number, maybe the order in which they completed the survey. But also, a lot of times, like if you're doing this data set for a job, that might be like a social security number, an employee ID. In this case, it could be a student ID, like your Power Campus ID number. So it's just some number, a way for us to be able to identify who the person is, right? All right. So the first thing that I would do when working with this data set and working in R is I'm just going to highlight the table. I'm going to right click and we're going to copy, right? And then I'm going to open up Excel. So we just need to open up a blank document, and I'm going to zoom in so you can see. And then I'm going to right click in cell A1 and go to paste, right? And there's all my information from Excel, right? But or from the Word document. But now what we need to do is format this very generically so that way R can work with it. So the first thing I would do is click just off to an empty cell to the right, and then up to the left you're going to see this format painter. It looks like a paintbrush. If you click on this, then we can highlight all the cells that we just pasted in. And what that's going to do is just take away all that formatting, all that color and the black lines around and so forth. That way it doesn't have any special formatting, right? R wants very basic data. And then this is something you don't have to do, but what I like to do is click in this upper left-hand corner, right in between A and 1. If you click on that, it'll highlight all your data. And I like to just click this button here to center, right? Center all the data. So I just think that makes it look a lot cleaner, right? And just to clarify, right, what's listed at the top, right? These are the names of the variables. And along the rows, like each row is a person, right? So like row 1, this is student 1, and this is all information about that person. So this is how you should be entering data into R, right? So so each row correlates to a person. So student 6 had a 2.26 GPA, is a female, and didn't work, right? All right, so then the next step is we want to save this Excel file, right? So when I work in R, I like to save as a Excel document on my desktop, right? So I'll click Browse. So now we're picking where we want to save it. So I want to save this to my desktop, and I'm going to name this how about just data. So I already have a file named data. So how about I'm going to call it, how about data 24, right? So data 24 is what I named it. And you can pick whatever name you would like, but one thing that you want to keep in mind is you want to keep it very simple because we have to import this into Excel. So I probably wouldn't do caps unless you want to type caps in R, because it has to match exactly, right? So it is case sensitive, meaning if you use a capital letter, it's not going to read that the same way, right? It has to match exactly. So I have data 24. And then the trick here also is we need to save this as a special file type. So what we need to save this as is a CSV format. So you want to scroll down until you see CSV, comma, delimit, right? So click that. This will save it as a CSV file. Now I'm going to click Save. And Excel kind of freaks out when you save something as a CSV format. So it's going to just ask you, like, are you really sure you want this? And you're just going to click Yes, right? So we're good to go. So now I'm done with this Excel document. So I'm going to just exit out. So now I have this data into R, right? So let me go ahead and open up R. So I'm going to go into Edit and GI Preferences, and what I'm going to do, I want to do this to make my font larger so you can see it. So you probably, you may want to make it larger. You don't have to. You may not want it as large as I am, but with doing this on a video, I want to make sure it's nice and big for you to read. Right, so I did size 18. So all I did was make my my font larger. Now what I would like to do is I'm going to go split screen on you. So I'm going to pull R to the left and pull up my Word document on the right. Right, so that way we can see what we're supposed to do and also see R. Right. All right. So when you're working on your data set, the first thing I would like you to do is you're going to hit the pound button. And when you hit pound in R, you're telling R, I just want to type some notes. I'm not telling you to do anything, right? So basically the pound sign is R, please ignore me, right? So what I would like you to do is type in your name here. And then we'll have to hit pound again on the next line. So I just hit enter to go down the next line, and then I'm going to hit pound. And I'd like you to do the assignment name. So it's R assignment 1, right? And then you'll hit enter. And then you can hit enter again just to have a space in between, right? So again, what I would like you to do is you put your name and the assignment on the second line. And then now what we have to do in R is we have to set up what's called a working directory. So a working directory is simply just telling the computer program R where we want to work at, right? What space do you want to work at? So what I always do is I do get WD, this command, with open and close parenthesis with nothing inside. And after I hit enter, this command prompts R to say, hey, where are you currently working at? So R is currently working at in my documents folder, right? So if you haven't seen this before, this is a file path, right? So this is the path that my computer takes to get to my documents, right? So if you remember right, we saved this on my desktop, right? So to change the working directory, you're going to do set working directory, so set WD, right? And then inside the parentheses this time, I'm going to put inside of quotes this file path. I'm just going to copy that and paste it. And then instead of documents, we need to change this to desktop. Whoops. Sorry, I accidentally hit delete, right? So let me try that again, right? So set working directory, and then just want to paste that in. Instead of documents, I want desktop, right? And that has to be inside of quotes and then inside of parentheses also, right? So I hit enter, and R didn't yell at me, so that's a good thing, right? It means it accepted that that command. So now R is looking for me to work on my desktop, right? So next what we need to do is tell R where we want our where do we put our data, right? Because R doesn't know where what I was just working in or what I want to work in. So you can name your data. So I'm just going to name my data data because it's easier for me to remember. And then you can hit equals here, or you can hit these two symbols, right? So if you hit shift and then there's a button beside M, and then the dash button, right, is in between 0 and the plus or equal sign on my keyboard, right? So we can hit data, and then we're going to use a command called read.csv, right? So read.csv is telling Excel, hey, read this file, and I want to name this as data, right? So I named my Excel file as, what was it, data 24? Let me double check. Yeah, data 24, right? So data 24.csv, right? So what's going to go inside of here, right, when you do this is just whatever you want to name your data file, right? And it has to be .csv, right, because that's the format type that we saved it as. And don't forget this has to be in quotes, right? And also don't forget this is case sensitive. So however you type that name, it has to match exactly, right? Just like when you do like a password for something, right? If you use a capital P in your password, but you don't, if you do a lowercase p when you try to type it in, you know, the computer will yell at you and say you have the wrong password, right? It has to match exactly. So then I'm going to hit enter. So now I told Excel that I want to call this file data, but Excel doesn't know that I want to work with that specific file, because one feature in Excel is I can have, or one feature in R is I can have multiple files saved into R, right? So what I have to do is I have to attach what's called attach your data. So you hit attach, and then you put whatever your data name is, and we just use the data name data, right? So keep it simple, right? So then before we start number 1, I just want to show you a couple other features you can do, right? So now if I type in data and I hit enter, it's going to pull up my data, right? So you can notice that's exactly what we have typed in Excel, right? So if you ever want to see that, you can just hit data and see all of those. Another feature you can do is there's a length command. So with the length command, I can type in data, so length of data. What that does is tell me how many variables I have, right? So I have 4 variables in my data set, if you remember, right? Also, if I type in length and I type in one of the variables, like if I type in GPA, for example, that's going to tell me how many things I have in my sample, right? I have 15 things in GPA, which means that n equals 15, right? I have 15 students in the sample, right? So that's a cool feature. Another feature is we can also use the names command of data, and when you do this, it just tells you what names do we have on the top row, right? What are we calling things? So if you ever go through an R assignment, or you're working in R and you can't remember what you called something, or if you capitalized something or didn't or whatnot, you can always use the name command just to pull that up real quick, right? Alright, so that's some basic features in R. So I'm going to hit enter a few times just to go down a few lines, and we're ready to start question 1, right? So I'm just going to hit pound and question 1, right, just to identify I'm ready to start question 1. So if I hit enter, then I just go down the next line and I'm ready to work on this. So number 1 says prepare a table that displays the frequencies in each subgroup across gender and work. How many males are working, right? So to create this table, right, we're creating like a two-way table in R. We can use what's called an xtabs function, right? But before we do that, I want to name this something. So I'm just going to call this table, right? Again, you don't have to come up with some crazy name. We can just keep it simple, right? So I can hit table and then hit shift and then the comma button, right? And then hit the dash button, right? Which again is right beside 0. So I hit table, and then I use what's called the xtabs command. So we hit xtabs, and then we're going to put this in parentheses, right? So you can go ahead and open and close a parenthesis. And then next, when you start this, we have to use a tilde button, right? Which on my keyboard, it's right to the left of the number 1, right above the tab key, right? Now, if you have a Mac, it's somewhere down further, right, next to like A and Z. But with a PC, it's usually right around there, right? So we're going to hit that key, which is called a tilde, and then you're going to type in. First, we need to identify the two variables, right? And when you do a two-way table, these are categorical variables, right? Because these come up with counts. So the two categorical variables that we want to do is gender and work, right? So I'm going to type in gender, and then type in plus, and then type in work. And notice I typed gender and work exactly how I have it written here, right? If you were to type in G with a lowercase letter, it would give you an error, right? It has to match exactly, right? So now I hit enter, and nothing happened, right? Nothing happened because I named something, right? So when you name something, like above when we named our data, nothing popped up, right? But if I typed in the name of the data, which is here, right, then I displayed all my data, right? So since I named this table in R, if I want to see the table, I have to type in table. Then I can hit enter, and there's my table, right? So let's type in question 1, right? So you're going to be turning in this R code, and then also turning in this document, right? So you want to you'll be turning in both, right? So you won't be turning in these specific items, right? Because this is the demo. But for the assignment, you're mimicking what I'm doing, right? So what I would do is go to insert and then insert a table, and we need to identify how many rows and columns we need. Well, we need so 1, 2, 3, 4. So maybe a 4x4 table I think will work. Right. So to show this frequencies, right? The variables that we have are female and male, and this is gender, right? And then across here we have working and not working, right? So I guess we don't really need to type in gender there. You can if you want, but it's not needed, right? So I'll just do this: working and not working, female, male. And I'm going to highlight everything in my table, and I'm going to center it again, right? I really like things centered. I think it looks a lot better, right? And when we create a two-way table, remember, typically we also like to have totals for each, so we can type this in, right? And notice here I put working and not working, but in R it identified no first, no before yes. So if that's confusing to you, you might try to copy it exactly, right? Might be easier when we transpose the numbers over, right? So I just switched that really quick. So I have not working and then working, so it matches Excel, and female and male, that matches. So I just need to type in the boxes, right? Not working, female, there are 4. For females that are working, there are 5 of them. Males not working is 3, and males working is 3, right? So now I can just fill in totals, right? So this total would be 4 plus 5, right? 9. And then here we'd have 3 plus 3, which is 6. And then here we would have 7, and then this total is 8. And then in here this would be 15, right? This total, right? So you should be able to create a table just like this, right? So I'm taking the information from R and transposing it into Word, right? So that answers the first part, right? It says prepare table. Now it says how many males are working, right? So we need to answer all questions, right? So how many males are working? There are 3 males working, right? So we can say there are 3 males that are working, right? So I answered that. Piece of cake, right? So now it says prepare table that displays the proportions of subgroups and gender over work. What proportion and percentage of females are not working, right? So this is going to be similar. So or similar to number 1, right? We're making a table. So I'm just going to copy that table and paste it just to make life easier. and but what's going to be different are these numbers, right? So I'm just going to get rid of all the numbers, right? So leave the titles, right? So now let me show you how to do that in R, right? So to get a proportions table, what the command is prop dot table, and then inside of parentheses we type in whatever our table is, right? So above I named my table table, right? So it's very simple, but again I wanted to make it easy, right? But you could call it whatever you want, like Batman, right? It doesn't make a difference. Call it whatever you want. So I hit enter, and now I have that same table, the same information, but now these numbers that are shown are relative frequencies, right? Proportions. So I asked you to show the proportion and females not working. So prepare this table, right? So what we would say is we just transpose these numbers over, right? So here we can just round to I don't know, like 3 decimal places, right? So 0.267 would go here. For the males not working would be 0.2. For females working is 0. And do 3 decimal places, and then for males that are working, we have what, 0.2, right? And then you could fill in these totals if you'd like, but I don't think that would be necessary, right, for this question. But if you'd like to, that's perfectly fine, right? So I'll just go ahead and just delete those. Right, and I'll just center my table. Right, so that's perfectly fine for number 2, right? So it's fine with me if you don't show the totals, but you can if you want, right? So there's my table, but it does have another question again, right? So let me just put down a space. It says what proportion and percentage of females are not working. So females not working are here, right? So I would say the proportion of females not working is 0.267. This is 26.7%, right? Right? So 26.7%. And if you're curious, you know, how is R getting these values, right? So if I just open up my calculator really quick. So for females not working, before we found there are 4, right? So 4 out of 15, right? 15 people total gives me this 0.2666 number, right? So that's what those are coming from. That's the proportion of females not working compared to everybody, right? So we got number 2 down. So then now number 3, it asks you what is the mean and standard deviation for GPA, right? So to find this, you can use this command. So we can use mean for mean, and you just type in what variable you want to find the mean of. So we want to find mean of the GPA, right? And if you remember up here, I had all caps GPA. So if I hit enter, there's my mean, right? So we can just come over here and say the mean for the GPA is 2.510667, right? And we could say the standard deviation for GPA is blank, right? And we can find that. So to find standard deviation, use a command with SD, right? So it's SD GPA, hit enter, and there's the standard deviation, right? So standard deviation is 0.7441723, right? We found that. So then part 4 says prepare a histogram of GPA, describe the shape of the distribution, right? So to find a histogram, what you're going to do is you're going to type in the command histogram, or HIST for histogram, and then inside parentheses you're going to tell what variable we want to do a histogram for, and we want to do a histogram of GPA. So if I hit enter, the histogram is going to pop right up, right? So if I hit enter, there's the histogram. So I'm going to click up here, this button, right, to restore down, so that way I can, it doesn't take up the full screen of R. And what I would like you to do is just copy and paste this into your Word document, right? So you're going to right click on it, and then you can click this first one, copy as a meta file, and then come over here and just hit paste, right? So right click and then paste, and there's your histogram. And you can change the size of it, right, by clicking on it and changing the size by clicking on the corners, right? So you can make that look nice, right? So there's the histogram, but then we're also asked to describe the shape, right? So I would say something like the histogram suggests that the distribution is symmetrical, right? So that's the distribution shape that I would give from this histogram, right? So I'm gonna have my highest bars in the center, and it looks pretty symmetrical on both sides, right? Remember that the distributions don't have to be perfect, right? So if you're in my class, we went through a worksheet with those and what histograms typically might look like in real life, but then also what in a perfect world, what would a symmetric distribution look like? So we can have those and compare, right? So I would say that is symmetrical. And then now we're asked to find the mean and standard deviation for GPA across gender. So if I were doing this, I would probably make a table here to organize my information. So insert a table, but I actually want to insert another row. So if you right click on it, I can go to insert row below, and now I have 3 rows and 3 columns, right? So here I might type in female and male across the side there, and then across the top we could type in mean and standard deviation, right? So I'm going to make this all caps so it's all consistent, and I'm going to go ahead and center this also, right? So now I can just type in the values, what they are, right? So now let me show you how to find those in R. So I'm just going to close out of this histogram, right? I don't need it anymore. So I'll just exit out. And notice sometimes R gets kind of funky, and now I can't see where I was working at the bottom. So what I do to fix this is just you're going to move R over to get to the top right corner of this window, and then I'm just going to hit this maximize button, and now we're back to where we want to look, right? So then the command to break this out by gender is we use a tapply command. So you hit tapply, T-A-P-P-L-Y, and then inside of parentheses I'm going to type in my numerical variable, which is GPA. So my numerical variable I want to look at, and then you're going to hit comma, and then now you're going to type in the categorical variable. So our categorical variable was gender, right? Remember, in gender I capitalized the G, and then you hit comma, and then now you're going to type in what you want to find, right? So if I want to find the mean first, I'm going to type in mean, and I'm just going to close the parenthesis and then hit enter, right? So now this broke out the mean, right? So the F is for females and M is for male, right? So the mean for females, right, we can type this in, is 2.7438 and a 9, right? And then the mean for the male was 2.15, and then there's what, 4 3s, right? So you can type in all those decimals if you'd like, or if you'd like to, round to like 3 decimal places, that's fine with me too, right? So now I need to find the standard deviation. So I need to type in that same command above, but instead of mean, I need to use SD, right? So a shortcut to do this in R is you can hit the up arrow on your keyboard, and it'll just bring up whatever was up last, right? So then I can just go over here and edit this. So delete mean and type in SD, hit enter, and there's my standard deviation for each variable, right? So for females, it's 0.72988021, and then for males, it's 0.6656325, right? So there we have that, right? So now, of course, you'd want to save this, right? So you can hit File, Save As, right, and save that wherever you'd like. So your documents, flash drive, desktop, wherever you want to save it. It's perfectly fine, right? So you just want to save it somewhere where you can turn this Word file into me. But if you remember right, I asked you, I also want you to turn in the R codes, right? So to do this, I'm going to make this full screen R now, right? So I'll just hit Maximize. And what you have to do is we're going to select all of the stuff that we typed in. Right, so go all the way to the top, and then you're going to go to File, and then you're going to go to Print, and then if you have a Microsoft, right, you can just go to Microsoft Print to PDF, right? So Print to PDF means I want to save this as a PDF document, right? So I'm going to hit OK, and then now this is going to ask you where you want to save it, right? So I can just type in and type in a name. So you know, we could type in R assignment 1 codes, right, and do like underscore and then type in your name, right, however you want to do that. Save it to your desktop or wherever you want to save it, and then you'll just upload both of those files to Canvas, right? So you're going to be uploading 2 files. All right. All right, so if you have questions, make sure you're contacting me. All right, that's all I have for this. Thanks.